What's up, Ruwando here, and in this video I'm going to share with you one of the practical applications of archetypal psychology. So let's say you've already identified that there's some aspect of your personality, of your true self, that has been suppressed for whatever reason and is causing you problems in your life, either compulsive behavior, self-sabotage, not showing up, being apathetic, something like that. And you've identified this dissociated part of yourself, this dissociated archetype, and you want to reclaim it because, of course, when these dissociated parts of ourselves are back in ourselves, they become virtues that empower what we want and help us materialize our intentions, whatever they happen to be, especially when it comes to emotional sides of life. So the big question is, how do you do that? A lot of stuff when it comes to archetypal psychology, and really anything having to do with the unconscious, can seem really vague and confusing, and well, how do I actually make use of this? So I'm going to give an example, because the first thing you have to understand is that everything that has to do with your unconscious is subjective. It's, according to you, whether you're doing, even if you're doing dream interpretation with a Jungian psychologist or any sort of other professional, your associations or the things that pop up for you are personal to you. There's some very common associations, like if you see an image of a snake in your mind, you dream of a snake, maybe it means something phallic or it means something around fear or something reptilian. But if when you were 4 years old you had a pet snake and you loved him a lot for whatever reason, a snake in your dream might actually mean companionship, right? This is the thing you have to understand. So I'll give an example. I was coaching this one guy who was in my 21-day archetype challenge, and we were speaking about some of his challenges around his expression of masculinity. So he had some issues with being assertive, repressed anger, some hesitation around dominance when it was called for in a healthy way. And when we were speaking about these topics, he started to have this brain fog, which usually is a sign that something is going on under the surface. So we explored it, and he noticed that he had this feeling of tension in his head. So I encouraged him to isolate it and really pay attention to what are the sensations coming with that tension. What does it feel like? If it had weight, if it had color, if it had texture, if it had any other random qualities, right? Like, obviously there's nothing actually in his head, but the perception matters, because the second thing we need to know is that with everything that's subjective, every single random sense that comes to you, a random image, a sound, a thought, a set of words, feelings, sensations in your body matter. It means something. We have to kind of just assume that, especially, this is Carl Jung's take on dream analysis. Everything matters. Everything counts. Every color you see, every image, and every random phrase a person says, it means something. It potentially symbolizes something important to your unconscious. So we isolated this feeling, and for whatever reason, he noticed, okay, this feeling in his head that feels bad. It's like it's red, it's rubber, and it feels like it's laughing. So we explored that. Like, what could that mean? It means nothing to me, but to him, for whatever reason, it somehow represented bullying. It felt like he had a bully in his head who was criticizing him every time he tried to do something. Now, the next thing, which I think is the big jump for a lot of people, is recognizing that when we have a dissociated archetype, like we can we just named this archetype for him as like the red rubber bully. For some reason, it's always laughing, a source of criticism. It's not a pleasant part of his personality or his psyche. It seems to be weighing him down. But the thing to understand is that your archetypes are never evil. Sometimes they will counter what you intend on doing. Sometimes they'll battle against other aspects of your psyche. They always have a positive motive. So we started to explore this feeling and I don't always do this with clients, but we started asking the feeling what it has to say. And after some digging, we recognized that this bully was really trying to protect the person, the self, the person I was speaking to, from doing things that would potentially cause harm in his life. This is a very common, logic is not exactly the right word, but like unconscious emotional logic, if you will, for why parts of ourselves will sabotage our intentions. Like, there's some other motive. It's like, if you imagine this part of his psyche, this character, this red rubber bully, was like, all right, my mission is to make sure we don't do anything dangerous. So I'm going to make him feel so bad that he can't do these things that are potentially risky. And when it comes to things like self-sabotage or unintentional expressions of personality, very often there's some mechanism in you that's trying to keep you safe or trying to keep you happy. It's just its methods are misguided. So this comes to our third piece of like, well, how do you reclaim this part of yourself, right? The whole reason why this aspect of yourself, this archetype, would do things in your best interest but in a way that harms you is because it's like it's on a different page. It's like, here's yourself and here are these these rogue agents who are also trying to do the best for you, but they're so separate from the self that they can't do it in a synergistic way. It's actually harming the body. It's almost like a cancer cell that's growing on its own because that's what it knows how to do, grow, but it's doing it in a way that's harming the rest of the body. So in looking for that, we want to identify what is the motive of this dissociated archetype. So for instance, in this example I'm speaking of, wanted to keep him safe. So how can he satisfy the mission of this bully that lives inside of his head, so that the bully can chill out and not use the self-criticism, right? Like, we still want the bully to fulfill its mission, but without all the negative externalities that are coming with that. So this is one way to look at how to reclaim parts of yourself. You have to remember that everything you're feeling is completely unique to you. It's subjective. It's great to work with a professional, coach, a counselor, a therapist, a Jungian analyst if you want, but you have to remember that they can't tell you what the symbols mean. It's always personal to you because it's existing inside of your psyche. The second thing is that everything counts. Color, shape, random things. I mean, this particularly applies to dream interpretation. If a random symbol pops up, it probably means something. And going on the first piece, it's unique to you, so your first thought is probably the right interpretation of that. The next thing is that you have to recognize there's always a motive inside of these impulses. Even if it's driving you towards compulsive behavior or something that seems super unintentional or not good for you, there's probably some thing that it wants to accomplish for your benefit. And finally, to integrate it, you want to be able to satisfy this need and without them having to do whatever they do. So like, if compulsive behavior is in some way keeping you emotionally safe, how can you create that emotional safety for yourself without having to do the thing that you don't want to do? Or, whatever it is, the inhibition and stuff. So archetypal psychology and anything to do with the unconscious can seem vague, but here's a framework that should help you interpret what's going on under the hood for you. If you want to learn more about archetypal psychology, or if you're a man and want to dig into your masculine archetype, the testosterone-fueled thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, which for many areas of your life would drive your success and your being, you can click on the link below. It's a 21-day challenge with different micro missions to help you summon your authentic expression of masculinity. You can check that out and make sure to subscribe right below to catch more videos on archetypal psych, dating, intimacy, and creativity.